Good evening, everyone. Okay, thank you so much for being here. My name is Lou Hexter. I'm from MIG, which is a planning firm in Berkeley that's helping support these public meetings with the Board of Supervisors District Lines Advisory Committee. On behalf of the committee and the Board of Supervisors and staff for the county, I want to welcome you and thank you so much for your time and attention in attending tonight. Very happy to have you. Before we go any further, I just want to let you, anybody who needs Spanish or Chinese translation, we have those interpretation services available tonight. So if anybody needs that, please see the table there. Tonight's meeting, as all of the District Lines Advisory Committee meetings are, is being videotaped, and there's a court reporter transcribing the meeting, and this is in the interest of providing full documentation for the public of these meetings. In addition, we do have summary minutes from prior meetings up on the committee's website, with the exception of the earlier meetings in this round of the committee's work. We're still working on getting those, and the committee has yet to approve any minutes from this second round of meetings. So if you haven't seen them, you're not missing anything. We're just a little behind in getting those documents up. But I believe the videotapes and court reporters' transcriptions are in process and available. Is that true, David? Do you know?
I believe the video is current to last week.
Okay.
The Daily City.
Okay, so we're up to the Daily City meeting. So we're continuing to make those available to you. And speaking of prior meetings, this is the I guess the fourth of the series of 5 meetings in this round. So we've been, there was an earlier round a couple of months ago. Some of you may have joined us in those earlier rounds. Was the District Lines Advisory Committee was just getting started, and we were hearing initial comments from the public about communities of interest and inviting the public to start the process of drawing lines. So that was the earlier round of meetings. This is the second round where we actually have some maps that have been drawn by the committee or the community, as well as the consultant team. You'll be introduced to some of that tonight, and an opportunity for you to reflect on those draft maps and give us your input. In addition, we have laptops with the mapping tool, the interactive online mapping tool that has been used over the course of the process to allow members of the public to come and draw online district lines and see what the results might be from a data point of view. And staff will be available. Chris is over there manning the station right now, and we'll keep that active for a little while after the meeting as well, so please avail yourself of that. Couple of quick housekeeping items. The restrooms for this community room are out the store and around the corner. If it looks dark back there, don't panic, because they're on a sensor, and as you walk in, you will see light. And hopefully those work. The handouts that you hopefully got, there's a copy of an agenda. Of special note, if you want to speak during the oral comments portion of tonight's agenda, we have a white speaker form for you. The large public discussion later on in the agenda is pretty much just by show of hands. But if you have a comment that's not on tonight's agenda and you want to speak during item number 4 on the agenda for oral communications, it'd be helpful if you would please fill that out and give it to Jamila, and we'll make that go orderly, in an orderly fashion. Well, those are just some preliminary announcements for the benefit of the group, but I'm going to turn the meeting over now to the chair of the District Lines Advisory Committee, Supervisor Adrienne Tissier.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order the San Mateo County Supervisorial District Lines Advisory Committee meeting for Thursday, September 12, 2013. And I'd like to do the roll call. Obviously, I am here. Supervisor Warren Slocum. Councilmember Sal Torres from Daly City. Councilmember Laura Martinez from East Palo Alto.
Present.
Hayden Lee of Millbrae.
Here.
Barbara Arrieta of Pacifica.
Here.
William Knack of Menlo Park.
Here.
Rebecca Asen of Daly City.
Present.
Raymond Lee of San Mateo.
Here.
Eric Reed, the alternate.
Here.
And Annie Loya, our other alternate.
I'm in the building.
You're in the building. Okay, we definitely have a quorum. Okay. I don't have minutes myself from the previous meeting, so,
Yeah.
so.
Just a few more introductory remarks at this point, and then
Okay,
I'll turn it
and I'll
back
let
to
you
you
go
for
ahead.
the public oral communications. We also wanted to acknowledge other elected officials that have joined us for tonight's meeting. And if I've missed someone, you can raise your hand and let me know. We have Carol Matsumoto from the City Council of South San Francisco. Hi. Hello, council member. Gina Pappen, the mayor of Millbrae. Thank you for hosting us tonight. And Marge Colapietro, City Councilwoman from Millbrae and a former mayor of Millbrae. Good. Are there other elected officials here? I'm sorry, I didn't get you. Right, thank you.
Robert Gottschalk from Millbrae, and Andy Oliva.
Okay, good. Sorry to have missed you all this morning, this evening. Thank you for joining us. Just by way of context, the District Lines Advisory Committee meetings are an opportunity for the public to comment on current district boundaries and the potential changes that have been proposed. The Board of Supervisors has created this 9-member District Lines Committee after the voters have changed the county's charter in November of last year to reflect that only voters within a district can elect a supervisor who lives in that same district to represent them. In other words, a district-based election or representation. Under the prior system, voters countywide were able to elect all 5 of the supervisors. With the heightened interest in the district-based elections, the Board of Supervisors tasked this committee with hearing public comment and studying the current and potential boundaries and recommending possible adjustments. So tonight's agenda, do I have a clicker? The next item on the agenda, the approval of minutes, as I mentioned earlier, we are currently working on the draft minutes, so the committee will just defer that, those approvals till probably till the last meeting of this round, and just look at all of the prior meeting minutes individually and approve those. We then have a time, as we do in all committee meetings, public committee meetings, for oral comment and or oral communications and public comment. As I said earlier, if you have something to say to the committee that's not on tonight's agenda, specifically about the maps and district lines, please fill out one of these and we'll have a time for you to do that. And we ask you to limit those comments to 2 minutes. The main part of tonight's committee meeting is about the presentation on the redistricting process and an update from the consultants on some draft consultant maps and the maps that have been submitted to date by the public. And just a reminder that the committee set a date of September 20th as a deadline for public submittal of maps, so you still have a few days to do that. After Doug Johnson from NDC makes his presentation, we have a good bit of time to hear from those of you who are joining us tonight from the public on your thoughts and reflections on, and I think what's going to be most helpful to the committee is if you can direct your comments to the maps or a map that you're interested in discussing, so that as we move through this process, the committee can understand your perspective on specific maps and either support or questions about those maps. After a good bit of time for the group discussion, we'll turn the meeting back to the committee for its own deliberations and discussions, motions, and et cetera, and an opportunity for the committee to take some preliminary actions or directions to get us closer to a recommendation, which is the task of the committee to come back to the Board of Supervisors with recommendations going forward. We'll reserve just a little bit of time at the end to remind you of the next steps in the process, the next meeting, public meeting you'll have, as well as other opportunities for input into the process. So I think that's an overview of tonight's agenda. And with that, let's see, I guess I'll turn it back to the chair for oral communications and public comment.
Thank you. We do have a couple public speaker cards here. The first one is Marge Colapietro.
Okay, if you want to come up and...
Excuse me, Supervisor, I was directed to put item 4, but that's relative to what is the item on the agenda. And I think item 4 is not otherwise on the agenda.
I'm sorry, you lost me there. Oral communications on item 4 is for things that are not related to tonight's district map.
That's correct.
You're welcome to say something if you want, anyway. I mean,
Until the
you'll wait.
regular
Okay,
process.
very good. Chris Bowman.
Committee members, Chris Bone, I'm the line drawing consultant for the San Mateo Republican Party. I wanted to say two things. First thing is just to talk a little bit about demographics. As you know, we have the CVAP, which is the Citizens Voting Age Population, which is based on the American Community Survey of the U.S. Census. Another document from that same survey is actually the ethnic breakdowns, not racial breakdowns, but ethnic breakdowns within race. And if you go by census tract, you can actually identify the concentrations of Filipinos, Chinese Americans, and also what the census classifies as Asian Indians as opposed to Native Americans. And I just wanted to go over briefly that right here in Millbrae, damn it, if someone could, hang on, just turn the damn thing on. I'm a Luddite, I apologize. I just wanted to say that right here in Millbrae, the highest concentration of Chinese Americans in the county is here. In fact, most of the hill country here is over 30% Chinese American. The second highest concentrations are around Westlake in Daly City, and then in Foster City. Your Asian Indians, highest concentration is also in Foster City, but also in Redwood Shores. Your Filipinos are concentrated, almost probably half of them, between Junipero Serra and Skyline down to Westboro, or slightly below Westboro, going all the way up along the ridge. That's number one. Number two is I did an all-nighter last night, per the chairman's recommendation that I take to heart the fact of keeping Pacifica and the coast in District 3. I will say that it's sort of like budgeting. When you have a 10% set aside, the other 90% is really hard in discretionary funding to deal with. And the same thing applies for line drawing. And if I had more time, I could go over the difficulties I had, but I will tell you that we were trying to put the two cities of, I'm losing it at this point, Hillsborough and Highlands in the same district, in District 2 or in District 3. Could not be done for District 3, even though we did in our original map, because we were overpopulated. And so I think that all the line drawers with the new requirements that you have are going to have greater difficulty map drawing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for staying up all night to figure that out for us. I did tell you you had till the 24th,
Chris.
but... Okay, Glenn Sylvester? Just happened to land on top here.
Commissioners, supervisors, thank you again. And again, I have to reiterate, I know what a hard task you have ahead of you. Latest updates, I believe that a new community map has been submitted, to which I looked at it and I support the community map. And the reason being is this: we are resistant as human beings to change. And as a result, it's inevitable some changes are going to have to be made. But I would like to implore the committee to at least consider the impact on the various cities and communities that might be affected via a split. If we can consider all the maps and see which one produces the least amount of splits of cities, I think for the most part, I know that you would have done your due diligence and want to keep the voters and the people of the various communities happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pamela Di Giovanni?
Good evening. My name is Pamela DiGiovanni, and I'm from Daly City. And I would like to thank you for all your hard work. And I know it's not an easy task to do. And there's all this talk about splits. Well, I want to say that I am not in support of splitting and taking part of Pacifica, because I have discussed it with my fellow people that I love in Pacifica. And I would like to try to keep the cities whole if possible. And that I noticed that on the map that was presented, I haven't looked at the current map, which is Community Unity in Daly City. It looked like we were trying to take apart of Pacifica. So I want to let Pacifica know that I am a supporter of keeping them whole, as well as any other city, and that I hope that we can work this out. And I hope in consideration also that many of us are identifying ourselves with our names. My name is DiGiovanni, but I would like to remind everyone that many of us may be of mixed races and ethnicities. And do we really know where we really come from? So once I would like for us to come together as a whole and to recognize that we're all Americans, and I definitely support South San Francisco being whole as well as Burlingame, Belmont, and the rest. So we can come together as the people that we should be as one. Thank you very much. We are all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Schneider?
You're doing agenda item 5 now?
No, I'm sorry. These are the ones I asked them to hand me were for oral communication. We'll hold it for 5. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Anyone else wish to speak under oral communications for something not on tonight's agenda relating to maps? Okay, very good.
It's hard to hear you.
It's hard to hear me?
Phone works better. I don't know.
Who wants to hear me or who wants to hear him?
I can try turning that one up, Chair. Try it again. I just don't want to blast. Go ahead.
Okay, is that better in the back there? So? It even sounds muffled to me. That's okay, I'm not on anymore for a while, so I'm going to turn it over back to Lou.
Okay, all right, very good. So again, for those of you who are a little confused, we will have more opportunity for public comment on the maps later on in the agenda. Now we'd like to hear from Doug Johnson of NDC, a presentation on this process and how the consultant and public maps have come together to get us to tonight. Doug?
Thank you. Clicker. So again, I'm Douglas Johnson. I'm with National Demographics, which is a consulting firm helping out the county and many other jurisdictions go through this process. So get this out of the way. So first, let me start with just some quick overview information for those that may not have been at earlier meetings. First of all, despite what often we read about redistricting and exposure to past redistrictings, there are some rules for redistricting. The first are federal law. First of all is equal population. There has to be essentially an equal number of people in each supervisorial district. And it is people, human beings, that they measure. So it's not citizens, it's not registered voters, it's people, whether or not they're children, registered voters, or anything like that. So equal population is the first number that we have to pay attention to. The next federal law is the Voting Rights Act. And this gets very complicated in implementation, but the idea is fairly basic, which is the law defines 4 groups as protected classes: Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, and Native Americans. And the idea of the law is that the protected class population should have an equal opportunity to elect their preferred candidates. In drawing lines, what that boils down to is that if there is a neighborhood or other community that is heavily of any of those protected classes, the line should not be drawn in a way that divides them in a manner that dilutes their electoral power. So it's really just a federal kick-in to communities of interest argument. It's saying keep communities of interest together. There are 2 provisions of state law that mention county redistricting. The first is kind of a guidelines. It actually says may give consideration. It's not a requirement, but it's guidance. So you may give consideration to topography, geography, cohesiveness, compactness, and communities of interest. The second provision is a little more controlling, but what it says is that if a county supervisor is drawn out of their district in redistricting, that doesn't impact the current term. it means they can't run for re-election, but it does say that redistricting will not impact any of the current terms. Then where most of the discussion in redistricting usually focuses is in what the courts have termed traditional criteria, or sometimes traditional redistricting principles. The big one that we hear the most about is communities of interest. The court said you should consider communities of interest. Now, what is a community of interest? Well, it's a neighborhood. It can be as big as a city, especially in a place that has small to medium-sized cities, as many of them in this county are. And ultimately, the definition of a community is whatever the people who live in that area define as their community of interest. We often get group neighborhoods that define themselves by the local park. We get others that define themselves by the local school. Others that define themselves by, between major freeways, that kind of thing. So there are lots of definitions. It ultimately boils down to whatever the people in a given area define as their community of interest. The next traditional criteria is following visible boundaries. The idea is to make it easier for people to understand their districts, so it's easier for them to get involved in elections and get involved and organized for policy debates. So follow freeways, follow rivers, follow other features that make it easy to describe and understand your district. Similarly, compactness and contiguity. These are also making it easier for the people in a given district to understand and know where their borders are. Then the other traditional criteria that the courts have said is fine to consider is what we call continuity in office. This is really, if you can avoid pairing two supervisors in one district, then you should aim to do that. The reason is really for the voters. The idea is the voters have elected these 5 supervisors, and it should be up to the voters whether or not those 5 get reelected. Redistricting, if it can be avoided while complying with the laws and other guidelines, should avoid telling the voters, last time you elected these 2, but next time you can only have one of those 2. So that's the idea behind that, and the courts have looked at that, and so that's okay to consider. The other one that comes up a lot is population growth. This is much more often in very fast-growing communities. We work with some jurisdictions that are growing 50% in a decade. We have one that even will sometimes doubles in a decade. So they can do small steps to try to offset that future growth. San Mateo County doesn't really fall into that category. But it is one that you can consider if we had the numbers present here. Then the last traditional criteria is preserve the core of existing districts. It's a little different here where we're changing election systems, but to some degree it still applies. The idea is that people have built relationships, they've built partnerships, and they've worked together in a given district for, it's a little different here, but usually for 10 years. And if none of the other criteria are driving a change, then the idea is don't make a change so that you don't disrupt those relationships. Again, the traditional criteria are kind of good government principles. They're not legal requirements. So just to briefly cover our calendar, tonight is the last of the kind of going out in town hall meetings. Well, in this little rush this week, I should say. And then the committee will meet for the last time on the 24th in San Mateo. And this, I didn't change that typo, sorry. It's October 8th is when the board will take this up. So there's not a lot of time between the committee's last meeting and when it goes to the board. So that 24th meeting is going to be key. And as I'll mention in a minute, the committee made some big steps last night, but we still have really continuing to possibly narrow down the number of maps, choose a preferred draft plan or plans, and then really go through those kind of preferred maps and look at what changes we want to make, looking more at, okay, where does this line split through this city, the real details that you can't go through in 20 maps, but we can when we're down to just a couple. And then obviously make a recommendation to the board. So this is an excerpt from a sheet that is now on the web that went up today. And what this highlights is some key demographics and communities of the 6 plans that remain what we're calling active. Last night the committee went through the 20 maps that we had and put 14 of them in what we've decided to summarize as inactive. They could still come up. These are the ones that are kind of in this corner and in that back corner that the committee considered not to keep on the table or active right now. Those are also included on the version of this that's on the web. But among the 6 that are still kind of in the active active status at this point, This lists the communities divided by each one, and then 3 demographic measures that were asked for by the public, actually 2 meetings ago, so we provided those. I should add that full demographics, all the different ethnic groups and all those kinds of things are available on the website for all of the plans. So really where we're at is we have, and these are just in alphabetical order, Community Unity 3. For those of you there last night, the only difference between 2 and 3 is the movement of a few census blocks that put the supervisors back into their original districts. There was some discussion, the group wasn't looking at where the supervisors lived when they drew it, and so 2 supervisors ended up essentially a census block away from their lines. So it's essentially the same as the map from last night with that small adjustment. So that map divides 5 cities. Then we have Nakamura 1A and 1A2 that I was looking back here, and my thanks to Justin Levitt from my NDC team who, when I couldn't spot the change, spotted it. They're very similar maps. The difference, and this is good for the committee, the only difference between them is down in Redwood City, Emerald Isle, and the reason he drew 1A2 is that 1A puts 2 supervisors together. So that's the difference between those 2 maps. And there are 2 supervisors paired in District 4 in map 1A. Otherwise, those 2 maps are quite similar. And I think that 47% is probably a typo. 1D is significantly bigger changes. That's on the back. Well, it's different changes compared to the difference between those 2 plans. The real difference between 1A and 1D comes in 2 places. One is Hillsborough, and let me put this on, oh, the maps are behind you, but let me put it on the screen for you. I can see them, but you can't in the audience. Okay, so let me bring up, so in map 1D, Hillsborough goes in District 3, and San Mateo is divided. So it's picking up population from San Mateo into District 1 and giving up Hillsborough relative to 1A2, where Hillsborough remains in District 1, San Mateo is united, but Belmont is split. So they both split 3, let me make sure that, yeah, 3 cities. 1A2 splits Belmont, while 1D splits San Mateo and puts Belmont together. So that's the big difference between those 2. The Community Unity 3 map that I was talking about, for those that saw it last night, or for those that are new, the only change is right in here. The Community Unity 2 map split off this little piece of Burlingame, which included a supervisor, into District 3. So now this piece is put back together into District 1, and Supervisor Pine, who currently is from District 1, is back in District 1. And then they took these 2 census blocks. So when I talk about it's a tiny little change from yesterday, it's these 2 census blocks to put the supervisor back in 2, and this small area. On the bigger picture, compared to the current lines, it's probably the easiest comparison. Brisbane goes into District 1 from District 5. District 5 picks up population in San Bruno to offset that. Then part of Burlingame and Hillsborough and San Mateo Highlands all go into District 3. And District 1 instead comes into San Mateo and picks up population there. Belmont is united in District 2, and San Carlos moves from District 3 into District 2. Redwood Shores is united with the rest of Redwood City in District 4. And then Menlo Park is divided along El Camino Real, where western Menlo Park goes into 3, and east of El Camino Real goes into District 4. Now that we're down to 6 maps, I can actually walk through them. I wasn't able to do this when we were at 20 yesterday. The precinct cleanup map is really very close to the current map. This is really just going through the current lines and cleaning up a lot of precinct slivers that the registrar identified as making it difficult to administer elections. Just to show you, for example, up here in the north, there's an area that's the unincorporated, the mountain park. where the current line cuts through. This would move the border between 1 and 5 to just follow the city line. So there's a lot of little slivers that fixes, shown in red. Down here, there are lots of little census blocks along the border of 1 and 3 that this would put together. Down here in West Menlo Park, the current line actually goes through the unincorporated area. This would move the border to follow the city line. And then there are other similar, just small census blocks that we're moving to unite precincts and eliminate the slivers that lead to new additional ballot types. So that's small changes from the current lines. Then the last map to walk through is what we call the two-city split map that's in the back. You may have looked at beforehand. This, oops, I take that off. This eliminates one of the current city splits. It leaves Belmont and South San Francisco as the only two cities divided. Everything else largely stays where it is, except for Redwood City. The Redwood Shores area goes with Redwood City. That's the current map division city split that is removed by this plan. And I think that's the major changes here. Yeah, Menlo Park remains whole in this plan in District 4. When we go to the comment period, if you want to comment on any of the maps or anything specific in the map, I'm happy to zoom in and bring up those details on the screen, if that would be helpful. Let me switch back. Okay. Oh, and that's the end of my presentation. So one thing to reinforce is that this really has been a big outreach effort, and that outreach effort continues. So thank you all for coming out. This is, again, great turnout. But certainly there are opportunities to continue to share your thoughts even between now and the 24th. You don't have to wait for the next meeting. Feel free to share your thoughts by phone, email, or any other way that you wish. So again, I'm happy to bring the maps up, but with that, we'll kick off the public discussion.
Excuse me, I just wanted to ask you a quick question about something you said. You were talking, I thought you said something like, if a change has been made in the last 10 years, something about not disrupting voters. Can you rephrase that?
Sure. This is looking at the core of the existing districts. And it most often comes up when we're talking about redistricting existing lines. And the idea is if none of the other criteria force a change, leave things the way they are so that the relationships between the city council and the city neighborhood organizations and the existing supervisor are not disrupted. It takes time to learn the issues of a given community. And where the courts have really kicked this in is that, and we're seeing this in Oakland right now, there's a district that is about 2.5% underpopulated. So it's short on population, but not by a huge amount. So the court just said, it's okay to accept some deviation if that avoids disrupting 10 years of relationships or whatever the history has been of those relationships. Because it does, you have to build relationships, you have to learn the issues, you have to know who's who and how to get in touch with each other and how to organize people. So if none of the other criteria is driving a change, then it makes sense to not make a change. And the courts have said you don't have to disrupt those relationships just for a tiny little population deviation.
Okay, Doug, so stay close by. This portion of the meeting is to hear from members of the public who wish to speak again on a specific map, a community of interest that is of concern to you, etc. And last night we had a really big group and we were able to get through public comment. We had a 2-minute limit, tried to keep that going, and we got through a lot of comments and we're able to have also good time for committee discussion. We're trying to get everybody out of here at 8:30, right on time. So that's our commitment to the committee and to you all. Anybody have a comment that I think we had some speakers that deferred till now, so we'll go ahead and come on up.
Thank you. Supervisors and members of the public, first I'd like a clarification. We were working on the NCD Millbrae split draft map. Is this still effective? Is this still in effect?
It's one of the maps that they voted to put it inactive.
Okay, so the way that it shows as a Millbrae split is still considered, will still be considered? Because I didn't hear you clarify that on your map presentation.
Right, yeah, none of the 6 remaining maps have split Millbrae. Made your comment anyways.
Okay, all right, yeah, we never know what happens. So first I want to thank the working group for all of your efforts and time and energy. It's a tough job. It's like splitting up families all in our county, and that would be very difficult even for me. I'm Marge Colapietro, council member for the city of Millbrae, and I want to verbally express an email that I sent back on August 7th to the advisory committee. And I understand that the committee has also requested to the consultant redraw the line so as to divide only one city, and that the city of Millbrae District 1 was selected to be one split, and that the split portion of our city will join with District 3, covering Coastside and portions of southern San Mateo County, including San Carlos, Belmont, Atherton, Woodside, and Portola Valley. I am here to state that I am strongly opposed to Millbrae being a one city split. And if you consider the demographics in your discussions, then Millbrae does not share a community of interest with District 3. Millbrae has and continues to grow our total Asian populations, and I'm strongly opposed to having our wonderful diverse community broken and divided between two supervisorial districts. It's my opinion that the objective should not be to do what is the easiest, but to be respectful of a community such as Millbrae and to allow us to have an effective and fair representation wholly within our District 1. And also for people in Millbrae to travel down to the south county cities in our county or even to the coastside is not logistically cohesive, and we need to preserve the core of our existing district of Millbrae, and the core of Millbrae is its beautiful diversity. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ann Schneider. I'm a resident of Millbrae, and I was prepared to say something else, but I guess right now it's thank you for not dividing Millbrae. I am an advisor to a group of students at Mills High School, and as I get to know these kids, some of them live on the other side of El Camino Real, and it's true today as it was when I was in high school here in the 70s. The people that live on the other side of El Camino often feel like they are the stepchild of Millbrae, that they are forgotten, and I am a geographer, a degree in geography. It's interesting how roads, freeways 280 in Daly City, how all of these pieces of topography can split a community. So I'm very thankful that you've chosen not to split us. I would keep in mind that one of my best students actually lives on the other side, and he already feels it even at his young age. So I thank you for the other cities being split. I would hope that you look at those, never necessarily worded in public, we feel like we're from the poor side of town, or we feel like we're from the stepchild part of town, whatever terms those might be, however inaccurate they might be, are still something that a community senses, and that for the other communities that I hope you can figure out a way not to split them, but if you do, you consider those as a way to keep them together, because it's very hard to keep our cities together, and that would be great. But thank you so far. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else have a comment, question, or come on up?
Hi. Thank you for coming to the coast yesterday, and I liked it so much I came back for more. I just have one basic comment. The Community Map 2, now 3, was submitted yesterday. There were many things I liked about it. The one deviation that had from both the current map pattern and most of the others is that it removed San Carlos from District 3 and effectively put in Hillsborough into District 3. There are 3 points I wanted to make about that. One, Hillsborough is actually then disconnected from the other parts of District 3 that are not the coast. Two, San Carlos does have, some level of connectedness to the coast. They have been, their Parks and Rec department has run the Parks and Rec for Half Moon Bay for the last 2+ years. And also the supervisors have a after-school STEM grant that jointly addresses San Carlos, Pacifica, and the Half Moon Bay coast side, just as an example of some level of collaboration between them. Also, when the people from the coast make their way to Redwood City, our most popular route is Edgewood, and we go through San Carlos, whereas we never go through Hillsborough. So those are just reasons why, and I think just in general, it alters the historical pattern, which is another reason not to change unless there's a particular reason to do it. And I believe that was done more for numerical balance than any functional reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay. Yes, Mr. Bowman. I can bring this to you if that's easier. Yeah, let's just.
I just simply have a technical question because as I said, I was line drawing last night. I spoke with Jeffrey Jeeves, the vice mayor of Redwood City, and he lives in Redwood Shores. And he pointed out to me that basically Redwood Shores is not connected to anything. It's not even contiguous with the rest of Redwood City unless you go down to 101, which is San Carlos or Belmont. So my question is that if the area in San Carlos is unpopulated on the east side of 101, and that's the only way you can make Redwood Shores contiguous with the rest of Redwood City, would that be considered a city split or not? Again, if there's zero population. Second thing is that working last night, I did discover, as you're aware, the what I call the orphans, which are the 52,000 residents of the county who are in cities that are divided, where they're in a different district with the majority of the people of their cities. And two plans that we submitted had it at 53,000 and the other one at 35,000. I found that it was much harder to be able to lower those numbers when you have 10% off the plate. So we had like 58 or 65,000. I looked at the community unity map, and although it only splits 5 cities, it splits very large cities, and there are 90,000 orphans in that, which is about 60% higher than it is currently.
Just to, on the Redwood Shores issue, yes, a city split where you're dividing part of the population of a city would be a city split. There actually are quite a few cities in California that aren't contiguous at all, much less, like you were saying about Redwood Shores, kind of in an unusual way. But yeah, you'd be splitting off part of the population of the city that is governed by the city council, that has city issues.
No, you got it wrong. The question is that to connect Redwood Shores with the rest of Redwood City, you have to go outside the district into San Carlos. You can go to San Carlos where it's not populated on the east side of 101. So the question is, with San Carlos, if you just use the unpopulated area of that, connect Redwood Shores with the rest of District 4, and put that also into District 4, would that be constituted a city split from San Carlos?
Oh, I see, for San Carlos. I mean, that would be up to the discretion of the population there and the committee to say, okay, yes, we're splitting the territory of the city, but we're not splitting the population of the city. So that obviously is, splitting the territory is less of a concern than splitting population, but ultimately how much anything has in terms of weight is up to the committee.
Okay. Some provocative questions and details I'm getting into now. Okay. Yes, sir. Come on. Would you like me to I can bring this to you. Let's make it easy.
Greg Conlon from Atherton. In some of these remaining maps, they're splitting Menlo Atherton again, which is split now. And I just think the community interest there is pretty clear that both those cities are very connected to both the universities, the shopping, and incomes, size of homes. And I'm not sure why there's a consistent pattern of splitting them up. And it's, it really begs the question now why they're the way they are, because you've got Menlo Park in District 4, Atherton in 3, Redwood City in 4, and San Carlos in 3. So, I mean, they're supposed to be contiguous, the districts, and I just think that you've got that big a strip of people and cities that are not together, at least physically, and it just begs the question why they aren't. And I don't know whether it really begs the question whether today, the way they're designed, or whether they meet the criteria generally for redistricting and, being contiguous and having a common community of interest. And I just think any of those 5 remaining maps should have, and we have got two more maps that will be submitted by the 24th that will also address that issue. 20th, I'm sorry, the 20th. So I think if you look at the present maps, the way it is today, it begs the question whether those hopscotch going up the peninsula in different districts is really proper. And I guess the one question about the District 3 and the coast we discussed last night, I just think that if the coast wants to stay together, it makes sense. But on the other hand, it seems to me they should consider who they want to be with, because they do not have a majority. They have less than 10% with the population they have today of a 20% district. So, if they get hooked up with communities that are not inconsistent or incompatible with the coast, then it begs the question whether you've really accomplished anything by staying together. So I guess I'm saying maybe you should, or the people that voted for it last night should get together, and assuming it's legal, and decide, who are the compatible groups. Otherwise, the coast is going to be by itself, but it's not going to be a majority. And so therefore, to concentrate yourself as a minority, I'm not sure that's what you want. So I just give that as a thought. Thank you.
Thanks. I think that prompted a response from Mr. Erickson.
I thought we spoke to that last night. We recognized that population-wise we're the largest area, but a minority in terms of the number required to get to around 150,000. In effect, what we said is we've had a certain pattern to date. We're comfortable with that. The only additional comment I made today is that jumping into another community that was sort of not contiguous with the current section seemed like a stretch. I did talk to San Carlos. I said, do you have any opinions one way or the other? One city council person said they hadn't really considered it one way or the other. I'll call that a wash. Certainly interested to hear what your thoughts are. But the coast very much feels that as a contiguous area with a lot of self-interest, it needs to stay together. In terms of which population we're linked to, I thought we made a reasonable case as to why that's a good one. We didn't consider Atherton in particular, and I certainly, understand the math. So we were sort of neutral in terms of ways you could do it, except to say the current pattern has worked well, and there are some reasons it aligns.
Yeah, to you, and then back to you, Mr. Sylvester. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Carolyn from Advancing Justice Asian Law Caucus, and we were helping to facilitate the Community UniMap. The Community UniMap came about through about 10 workshops that we facilitated in various communities throughout San Mateo. And so we were trying to reflect the different communities in the county and in order to protect those communities of interest. And I just wanted to point out that, so the Community UniMap currently has about 5 cities that are split. And 2 of those cities are actually, it's Burlingame and San Mateo. And the reason why it's done that way is actually in order to protect the community of interest that lies east of El Camino Real. So as someone had mentioned earlier, the people who live on the east side of El Camino Real actually have a very different background than those who live west of El Camino Real. And as we know, in San Mateo is very much defined by its topography. So once we get up into the hillier areas, we start seeing more single-family homes, more higher-income families, and different concerns and different issues than the communities that we see that lie east of El Camino Real and by the train tracks. And so that's why that city split occurs over there, because the communities that we spoke to so that they feel more kinship with each other on that side of El Camino Real than they actually do with their own cities. And so we wanted to be able to protect those communities of interest. We've also made a couple adjustments in order to reflect the comments that we've heard through the last couple of meetings. For example, we heard a lot about how the coastal areas want to stay together, and so we've been able to put Pacifica together as a whole in order to maintain that. We also heard from previous testimony that Hillsborough may have some sort of commonality with the coastal areas, given that there's a lot of nature and forestry in Hillsborough that's not really found in other parts of the county, and so that's why Hillsborough was placed into the coastal area. And as we know, the coastal area is going to have to pick up population from somewhere other than just the coastal areas.
Thank you so much.
I was surprised how you remember my name. Thank you once again, Glenn Sylvester. I didn't know if this was the correct forum, but I believe at the last meeting I attended in Daly City, Mr. Carey, who's in the audience today, had put up some information regarding voting patterns, and I think it would behoove the folks present here to at least just take a look at that, if that was possible. That's all.
Do you want to address that? Yeah. Okay. Right now, do you want to? All right, go ahead.
My comment would be, I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but I'm Sandra Lang. I live in Burlingame. I've been there since 1965. I disagree with your analysis of the east-west divide that goes up and down, because I think that argument, if it were used, it could pertain to almost every city on the peninsula. So with all due respect, I think you're wrong.
Mr. Carey, do you want to come on up and explain what Mr. Sylvester was referring to?
I wasn't really planning on making a presentation of any additional data here tonight, but I appreciate the interest in some of that voting pattern data, and I do think that with some more analysis that I can provide some information that may help the committee in making some of the tough decisions that you still have to make. But I don't have that ready for general use tonight. So during the next week and a half, I'll hopefully be able to submit some written material that you may find helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am?
Just to emphasize that voting pattern aspect of it, the issue with the Millbrae one, which we hope has been dropped, is that in one particular supervisory race, where it used to be county-wide, District 1 did not elect the individual who won the race. So to take Millbrae out and put it down at the other end, that's kind of what happened in that race. So the voting pattern really would have made a major effect if it was presented as it hopefully will not show up again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I don't see any other members of the public with hands up, and so I think we can turn it over to the committee for some deliberation now.
And maybe for the sake of those that are here, one of the things we did last night was take a look at, as was said by Doug, we took a look at a lot of the different maps, and because we only have one more meeting in which to pare things down to a reasonable number to bring forward to the Board of Supervisors, we did take some action to either make something active or inactive. Now, I have heard from individuals from South San Francisco that, they didn't like the fact that theirs was left out, and they had just used South San Francisco as to how they would like to see it. I have asked Doug between now and the 24th if he could, maybe even if it work with South City, or South City might submit one, that we could put a map together based on one of theirs, just so we could see what effect it would have in order to get the proper numbers throughout other cities, so that we actually have something that is more concrete versus something that just showed South San Francisco by itself, or almost by itself. It still had some cut out, but that's something that I think I'd like to see come back to the committee, just so we can see something in the whole, and who it affects and how it affects, and whether or not it would even be considered. So I think that's appropriate. I'm going to open it up to the committee. Again, we have the ability, as everyone knows, we are not closing the submission of maps till the 20th at the end of the day, September 20th. So this won't be all that we're working with, I'm sure, by then. So we have the ability to move more off the table, add more on the table, or leave it alone till we get the rest of the maps for the 24th. So I just throw that out because we did do some things last night. So anyone who would like to take a stab at the evening? Yes.
Last night, we included Community Unity 2 with the understanding that there had to be some tweaking with the supervisors' residences, as it were, because they were both in the same district on Unity 2. So we had taken that in, and we had voted and agreed to it. So this Unity 3 is a simple tweak. Do we need to revote, or how do we approach that? Because obviously 2 is out and 3 is in. And a simple tweak.
I would say, if I could ask you, Paul, I mean, we said go ahead and adjust those lines. They're calling it Unity 3. They could have put it Unity 2A or whatever. Do we need to revote?
No, Paul Okada, County Attorney, I don't think you need to revote. I mean, as you were voting, you were really just trying to narrow the committee's focus.
Right.
And as long as that's what you continue to do, you're fine. Certainly, at the meeting on the 24th, you will, you will be recommending certain maps onto the Board of Supervisors, and there you need to be pretty specific, actually, obviously, as to what you're recommending. But for now, I mean, in this meeting, you can simply continue to just narrow the way that you're doing it.
All right. Any comments by members?
Thank you. Oh, I just want. Okay, I just want. Thanks, Mike. I just wanted the clarification. Doug, did you say that the 47% in Nakamura 1A is a typo, 1A2? Because I looked at the maps and the only line I could see that changed was the San Bruno Mountain, which I don't believe that would change 6%, 5 or 6% of the minority.
Exactly. That's why I was wrestling, trying to figure out the difference before this until Justin pointed out it's just down there. So let me pull up the actual demographics for that. Is that my mic that's being confused? Oops, that's the city split report. Demographics. So, go back to that slide. Bear with me for just a second. So we're looking at 1A and 1A2, and we're looking at the minority CVAP of District 1. I'm trying to resolve. So it should be, CVAP of District 1 is, it's 1 minus this, so it's 48%. Rounding, it's 47 in the rounding when we ran it. So it should be 47 in both of those. Yeah. Actually fix that.
47 in both. So 1A is incorrect.
Correct. Change that. This is the perils of going quickly as we move things from the map to Excel to PowerPoint. Sometimes they don't quite move correctly.
Are you ready for the next question?
Yes.
So on Unity, Community Unity 3, we tweaked the lines because Supervisor Broom and Supervisor Pine were in the same district, and so you tweaked it, the lines.
Actually, Supervisor Groom was flipped into a different district from her current district, and then Supervisor Pine and Supervisor Horsley were both together in District 3.
Okay. But then on Nakamura 1A, map Nakamura 1A, both Supervisor Horsley and Supervisor Slocum are there in the same districts. So how do you approach that?
Well, Mr. Nakamura actually spotted the issue, and that's why he drew 1A2. So I don't know why he left both 1A and 1A2 in his recommendations, but...
So do we eliminate, or not eliminate, but do we put in the inactive category Nakamura 1A?
Yeah.
that would seem to be the logical step.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? We have a motion and a second to put Nakamura 1A on the inactive list. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes.
Just one more quick thing, and maybe my colleagues can help me here on the committee, but if I remember right, last night we moved one or more maps into the inactive column because the minority CVAP dropped to 40%. And then if you all can help me remember that, and then if that's true, then maybe you would consider putting on inactive the two-city split map, because in D4, in District 4, it brings down the CVAP to 40%.
Okay, maybe you can bring that up, if you wouldn't mind.
The map, sure.
Two-city split.
I would move to take off both that and the precinct cleanup, which move District 4 down to 40.
Say that one more time. Well, first off, we've got a motion. Are you asking for a substitute motion?
No, did you make an motion, Warren?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Or he wants to take the two-city split, but I was wondering if you
Can I
could...
offer an amendment, or does this need to be seconded first?
It needs to be seconded, but I was asking, can we see the map for a second so we can see what he's... Is this the two-city split right here? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, and you want it to be, I just want to ask a question, so you want it to be eliminated because of the 40% in D4?
Well, I thought that's what we talked about in some categories last night.
With the document.
But my memory's a little...
If I can just clarify briefly. That, what you're remembering about the 44% was part of the discussion of the one city split maps. Another part of it wasn't only because of that. Those maps also put Pacifica into District 5. So it wasn't the only factor that was looked at.
One more point of clarification also. That, I think, was a discussion on D5. Because D4, even if you look at the current demographic, currently it's at 42%. So I don't think that discussion actually concerned District 4.
I think, oh, that's right.
So did you still want to...
Yeah, I still want to make a motion to put in the inactive list the NDC two-city split map.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that becomes inactive. Okay. Any other comments from committee members? So if we don't have any other comments on these particular maps, then these would just come forward, and then you would take these along with whatever else comes in by the 20th and bring that back to us on the 24th to go through once again and finally flesh out the numbers that are coming to the board?
Well, we can do that. One suggestion, well, two suggestions I'd have is, if the committee is interested, is I don't know if you have a preference between 1A2 and 1D for the Nakamura maps, but that might be another way to narrow it down a little bit. And then the second suggestion would be similar to the direction on South San Francisco. If the committee members want to give any thoughts you have about a map that you haven't seen, or some twist on a map that you'd like to see, that we can take some of the general comments, but it helps us if we know specifically ideas that you'd like to see.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, I would like to see something around the South San Francisco
Definitely.
based on what they submitted. maybe before we get to our suggestions, does anybody have a comment or a suggestion on the Nakamura 1A2 and 1D preference, if we wanted to?
Well, could you, excuse me,
Sure.
could you just bring those maps up and summarize the difference between 1D2 and 1A2 for us?
Sure. The 1A2 map keeps I'll just go for the differences, keeps Hillsborough in District and San Mateo Highlands in District 1, and keeps Belmont divided. It changes the division of Belmont, but it keeps Belmont divided. Compared to 1D, that puts Belmont together. All of Belmont is in District 2, and then Hillsborough goes into District 3. And then to make up for losing Hillsborough, District 1 comes down into San Mateo.
I guess my comment on that might be that currently Hillsborough's together with Burlingame, and Belmont's already split in its current configuration. So I would almost say, I mean, it really doesn't matter, but because I would almost leave something alone that's already together and they're used to it than to change one city out now that wasn't. But again, it's...
Making a motion?
And I'll make that motion that we keep Nakamura 1A2 and put on the inactive Nakamura 1D.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. Any comments?
I would like to argue against it.
Okay.
You know, I would think I'd rather keep Belmont together than the lop off part of San Mateo. You know, it's a small portion of San Mateo. It's a much larger city. I think you'd find it much more community of interest in the Belmont than the larger city of San Mateo. So in the sense of keeping cities together, it seems to me that 1D keeps that way. Also, 1D also seems to have a higher, keeps District 1 over 50% minority for the CVAP, So for those reasons, I would prefer the reverse, that we make 1A2 inactive.
Okay. Any other discussion? We do have the motion on the floor. Is there, in a second, I'll just take the vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay. So we have...
We take a roll call?
Yeah, we might have to, let me do the roll call, if I can find my sheet here. Roll call. Adrian Tissier, aye. Warren Slocum.
Aye.
Laura Martinez.
Opposed?
Peyton Lee.
Opposed? No.
Okay, Barbara Ariana.
Aye.
William Knack.
Aye.
Rebecca Asen.
Aye.
Okay, Raymond Lee.
No, abstain.
Abstain. Okay, so we have 2 noes, 3 yeses, and an abstain. So that motion passes. Okay. So currently left on our list, unless anybody wants to make any other motions, Community Unity 3 is on there, Nakamura 1A2, and the precinct cleanup. Okay. Any other comments, concerns, motions? Yes.
I have a quick question.
Sure. You want to pass that down?
Rebecca Eisen, Daly City. You know, I was wondering, when we submit the maps to the supervisors, will it be just one map to be submitted, or there will be, like, how many maps are?
We can, I can talk loud enough. We can do as many as we want. The whole purpose of this committee, though, is the hope is to have probably no more than 4. It'll probably be easier than to have, but we can really submit whatever we want.
Okay.
It doesn't have to go down to 1. And we may get some more that we also might want to add to this list, and when we get that, we might want to eliminate something here. So, it's really up to this committee, but we also, for the sake of the board not having to do this same work all over again, It would be preferable not to get more than 3 or 4 probably, but there's no number.
Okay, I was just wondering on that, because since we've been having about 10 meetings, and we've always been listening to the concerns and of the community, I thought maybe if we could submit like narrow it down to a certain number so that it's a lot easy, at that point we are able to, what are the maps that we have submitted, because we are here present, is more or less what the majority of the community would prefer. So I was thinking, in that line.
And that's, as we pare it down, we can, at our final meeting, we can decide that we think it's worthwhile to send 1 or 2. Remember, though, when it comes to the Board of Supervisors, the public can still come and say, we really don't like anything that's come to you. We want you to do X, Y, Z. And the board could go on to our last meeting won't be the last public discussion, but it will be a recommendation of 1, 2, 3, 4 to the board saying, this is what we heard, and these are the ones that we think we'd like you to take a hard look at. But at the end of the day, it's again advisory, and the board does have the discretion to go back and take a look at anything they want, or redraw it based on a few tweaks they heard in the meeting even. So so that's kind of the direction. So we can do it. Any other comments by committee members?
I'd like to make a request.
Sure, please.
In terms of looking at potential maps and scenarios.
If you can bring up the Community Unity 3 map, and I want to see if Doug can at least provide a scenario, probably not tonight, of course, but at some point, to see how far off in terms of a balance we are in terms of population, and also to get the statistics on the CVAP. But in terms of looking at District 5, if we were to move Brisbane back into 5 and adjust South San Francisco in some fashion by increasing and also removing San Mateo from District 1, and then trying to make Burlingame whole. I want to see how far off we are in terms of population. And certainly I want to see what the CVAP statistics are as well. Along with that, in District 4, I think the Republican map did provide a southern end to Menlo Park. If we can see what that looks like in terms of adopting that configuration and adjusting those figures to District 3. Again, I'd like to see, did I lose you in District 4?
Yeah, I was about to ask. Let me bring up so I can show both of them on here. If that works. Yeah, so I wasn't following the Republican map in D4.
The Republican map preserves the eastern, I guess the northeastern tip of Menlo Park and East Palo Alto together, but it puts the remainder of Menlo Park, the southwestern, part of Menlo Park, in the District 3 along with Atherton.
I see what you mean. Yeah. So what they do is in the Republican plan, instead of splitting Menlo Park at El Camino Real, they put neighborhoods that are east in and trade that for the unincorporated Sequoia tract. Is that you're saying put that in as a test? We can certainly do that. I think it's a straight trade. He's nodding yes. So. So that should work. But we're happy to draw it. Sure.
Yeah, if you can do that, that would be helpful. Thank you, at least for myself.
Great, thanks. Eric, did you want to pass it that direction?
So just a quick question for you. The Nakamura 1A2, which splits Belmont, I believe it splits Belmont in a fashion that's different than it's split today.
Correct.
I would recommend, if it's at all possible, to mirror today's split, if you're going to maintain the split nature of the city, just to keep it consistent. I don't know that there's another natural way to split the city.
True. Yeah, and actually we spent a lot of time on that. So it is a pretty straightforward switch. If you can either do the current line, which is the blue split, or what's in here and was in some of the others, which is just following Ralston through town. But yes, you can certainly just swap that back to the other way. It's no problem.
Thank you.
So are you saying you'd like to see that at the next meeting?
It would be not, yeah.
And see what it does to the demographic? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions, suggestions for Doug? Okay, if there are no others, maybe we should do a wrap-up. Lou, did you want to go ahead and do the next steps?
Well, let me give 2 points mainly for the public. Some of you may have noticed on the website, the early maps, we had Google Maps versions of them. We'll get Google Maps of the kind of 3 lives and the new ones up there. So we definitely encourage you to use those. The power of Google Maps is you can zoom in and see exactly where the lines go in a given neighborhood. And so go through these plans and see where they are dividing, and fine-tuning tips are definitely what we're looking for. And we mentioned that the goal for the public is to get your plans in by the 20th. So we're going to, as NDC, we're going to try to get all these maps that have been requested posted hopefully by the 16th, it may be the 17th. So the public has a chance to see what we draw in response to your directions and react to that before the 20th deadline. So watch the website on the 17th.
Okay, so just in addition to those comments, I want to remind you that Chris is in the back and has the online mapping tool up and running right now, and you're welcome to come and join him and sit down. And if you haven't toyed with it yet, here's a great opportunity with the man who created it or knows how to use it. I want to mention one more time the date of the September 20th, which is a week from tomorrow, which is the deadline the committee set for receiving submittals from the public on maps. Another date that's important is the next committee meeting, which is Tuesday, September 24th. That meeting is going to be at College of San Mateo, the Coral Room, and there's instructions on the Building 2, Room 110. If you want to, just so you don't forget, you can pick up one of the flyers on the table, and it tells you where to park for free.
It's the College of San Mateo.
College of San Mateo, I'm sorry, whatever. And there's free parking in one of the lots, so probably an important thing to note there. One more reminder that if you wrote anything on a comment form tonight that you'd like the committee to know about, we include these as part of the record of the committee, so leave those at the front table. I think there was a slide about other ways to communicate with the committee by email or mail. So we invite that as well. And if you know folks who weren't able to come out tonight but would like to participate, please, there's a little half sheet back there that has all of those contact, what Doug just put up here, all of these methods for hearing from you. And we invite you back on September 24th, the final meeting of the committee, as you hear the deliberation, and you'll have one more opportunity at the Board of Supervisors hearing on this issue as well. So I see a member of the public with a comment. Are you open to hearing from that member?
Well, we can. I mean, we sort of shut it, we sort of adjourned that part, but go ahead.
Okay.
I was just wondering, is there a process for deciding whether there's going to be one or more maps presented to the board? And what is that process?
Well, the process will be up to this group here. If everybody here, unanimously or by majority says they want to just send one, we send one. If this group decides to send 2, 3, 4, 5, that's really up to what this board wants to do.
And that'll happen on the 24th?
On the 24th.
And there'll be opportunity to comment then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
If I could just make one quick comment on it. In setting up this committee, the intent of the people involved was to ensure that the public had meaningful input. I think that they've had meaningful input, And I think that it would be an abdication of the responsibility of this committee to give the board more than one map, because you've had the testimony, you're closer to the community now, the board will not be. The board's going to have, as I understand, one hearing, a matter of hours. These people in this room are not going to be there. Many of the other people in the other hearings are not going to be there. And I think it would really undermine the whole purpose of setting up this committee in the first place.
Well,
we didn't want you to be a paper tiger.
I want to tell you, I disagree with you, because first off, the board will be privy to all the same information that the public's had, all the hearing notes that we have, and it will be
If they read those notes.
And there will also be another public hearing. So it's really up to this board whether we say we can't agree on just one. We may see the world differently and want to submit more than one. So we've said that from the beginning of this process, that it could be one map, it could be 3 maps, it could be 5 maps. If this board isn't unanimous or doesn't want to do just one, we don't have to do just one.
Well, I'm sorry, were you unanimous?
No, it doesn't have to be unanimous, by a majority, whatever the majority would send. So if the majority wants to send more than one to give the board some options, they can certainly do that. And that's been discussed since the beginning.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're just expressing our views that
I appreciate
we think
that.
that if you give them more than one map, we kind of
As a board
undermine.
member, I would like, if they want to send me 3, I'd like to look at 3.
Well, as a board member, you certainly know you're going to be in a superior position to your colleagues, having sat through these hearings. They're not going to read through the hundreds of pages of
Well,
transcripts.
you know, our board reads through a lot of stuff, and they're pretty well educated when it comes to, especially something this important to the public and to the community. So I just want to say I respectfully disagree with you.
Okay, back to you then, Chair, to close the meeting then. Madam Chair, back to you for closing the evening.
First off, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Feel free to give us more comments, more maps, any other additional input. We look forward to it. We will see any and all of you that want to come on the 24th and also to our board meeting. And we really appreciate the input that you've given us. It does make a huge difference to us. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Do you have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody that wants to stay longer?
Thank you all.
Hey, David?
Thank you.